if any of you have been to Minneapolis, you'll hopefully have thought of the city as a completely magical place. Where I lived in Minneapolis, we had all kinds of bike routes and running routes, and the Mississippi River was right there, and everything was green and beautiful. And yes, there was a lot of snow in the winter, but had all kinds of lakes. Everything about Minneapolis, I think of it as being magical. When we were apartment hunting, though, we wanted to be close to campus, and we found this magical neighborhood close to campus. So it was all around a great win. And I had a roommate from upstate New York, Fiona, and we got along. Everything was good. We had some misfit neighbors in this condo building, though, which is important to the story because the floor below us, there was a man who his car was in the garage, but he wasn't able to drive because he'd had so many DUIs. He had groceries delivered to his house, so he was always there. He liked to be called Bear. He had his nipples pierced, and he always had loud music playing, usually 80s rock music. So Bear was the floor below us. The floor below him, there were some guys that always had their bongs, and that was their thing, and they were always partying till whatever hour. We had another woman who was extremely meticulous, and she would go out and cut the grass with scissors. So she was extremely, extremely OCD to no end. And then there was this other man who I rented his garage because my apartment unit didn't have a garage space for us, and his name's Peter. Peter was a social recluse who wasn't able to come to the door, so I had to slide my rent check under the door for him. And if I did get him at the door, I'd get like a little bit of an eyeball, and that was it. So that was the interaction with Peter. So anyway, long story short, all these individuals are cohabitating in this 3-story condo building, and one afternoon, it's close to finals, I'm stressed out, I'm with my boyfriend, and I've self-diagnosed myself on WebMD. I'm convinced that I have this major health issue. He's talking me off the ledge. I feel it's a huge emergency. Really, it's a combination of the stress and the lack of sleep, and I'm really totally fine. And at that moment, though, sirens start. And they're just wailing, and we hear them coming, and we realize that they are at our condo building, and there's smoke, and there's people running up the steps, and we end up having people knocking on our door, so we're running out. There's soot all over the steps as we run out. So this feels like a much bigger emergency than my previous health self-diagnosed issue that I was convinced I was going to suffer from forever. So we're outside, and we're trying to figure out, like, okay, now that there's 8 fire trucks and several police cars in this tiny little quaint neighborhood in Minneapolis, what's this emergency about? Why are they here? And we find out that poor man, Peter, who only came to the door so you could see like one eyeball, if anything, that he's a complete pack rat, hoarder to the extreme, and he smokes a pipe. So all of a sudden, this couch with all these papers and books and junk, for lack of a better term, comes over his 2nd floor balcony onto the floor. Everything's flying up. It's ruined, but it was probably ruined a long time ago because of his, personal tendencies. So he's in complete shock, and you can just see the devastation on his face because everything about this is his emergency, and he's the one causing this scene when he doesn't even want to be out in the light of day. So you recognize his panic and his emergency in this, and then you see the woman to our left sitting kind of close to the gate, and she's the woman with the scissors, and she is just beyond collapsed and sitting on the grass because her poor, perfectly manicured lawn now has this horrible, huge, basically like dust, dirt hole in it with this couch that's got smoke and gunk all over it. So the lawn did not look the same for a while. The apartment building was fine. We were able to go back upstairs, and our apartments were all fine. There was no smoke damage. But you just realize that it goes from my health emergency, which was nothing, to an actual emergency with firefighters, to then the poor man who has to be out in public, who doesn't want to be around any people, realizing all of his stuff is burned to a pulp, and then the poor woman who doesn't have a perfect lawn anymore. So emergencies are relative.